What is up, dogs? Okay, we are good to go. Cell lesson ocho. There's my ocho. There it is, right there. Boom, ocho. Okay, for all you kids who aren't as bilingual as I am, haven't been paying attention to Mrs. Hensey's class. Ocho means 8. Okay, we're on cell lesson 8. Big question. What are some examples of specialized cells in the human body? What's this, Mr. Olgers? What's a specialized cell? Well, let me tell you, little Jimmy. A specialized cell is, sorry, I'm just like half awake here. Might be wearing pajama pants right now, just saying. A specialized cell is a cell that is not generalized. That's not a very good answer. Okay, let's get into it. Let's get to the notes right now. So here we go. I stapled my packet together. You should do this. You got to turn this packet in on Tuesday. So you might go through and just staple the whole thing together now to study with. So here's my packet. It's all stapled and ready to be studied with. So like day 1, it's been a great unit. Talked about how people used to think that random things could just randomly come together. Not possible. Okay, we talked about cell theory, that every cell comes from another cell, and that all life has to come from life. Then I showed you kind of the 2 basic distinctions of cells, that you're either a bacteria or you're something else called a eukaryote. Prokaryotes are bacteria, eukaryotes are everything else. Then we talked about how if you're a eukaryote, traditionally, you are either a plant or an animal, but there's actually also a couple other kinds of eukaryotes that we talked about. But this was kind of how eukaryotes were taught in the 60s to my dad. And so these are kind of the generalized plant cell and the generalized animal cell. Okay, now fast forward to today's notes. And what I want to get through to you, take this generalized animal cell, draw a circle around it, maybe do this in red even, okay, because usually it's a red sign that looks like this. Draw it in red, here we go, red, and then go, okay. There is no such thing as a generalized animal cell. So when I was first teaching biology, first 2 years, I actually taught middle school biology, and then for about 10 years I taught high school biology, anatomy and physiology, advanced biology. I got to teach all the really superior classes. And those first 2 years I was teaching biology to middle schoolers, I just thought it was so dumb that they had us teaching kids the generalized animal cell and the generalized plant cell, because there is no such thing, okay? There is no generalized animal cell, okay? Let's go back to this. There is no animal cell that is this cell. This is not a thing. This is not a real cell, okay? That's why I put a cute little smiley face on it, because it's not real, okay? There are cells in animals that all look different. There's brain cells, there's blood cells, there's bone cells, there's liver cells, there's kidney cells, there's heart cells, there's fat cells, there's skin cells. I mean, I think there's like about 1,000 different kinds of cells. And when somebody gets cancer, they always name the cancer after the type of cell that is cancerous. So you got about 1,000 different cells that exist, and about 1,000 different kinds of cancer that there are. And there's, like I just rambled off 20 different cell types right there. There's about 20 different kinds of cells, but within each of those kinds of cells, there's 10 different variations. And so, there's like probably 8 or 10 different brain cells. There's at least 3 different muscle cells. There's muscle cells that are heart muscle cells, that are cardiac myocytes. There's muscle cells that are skeletal muscle cells that attach to bones. There's muscle cells that are smooth muscle cells that they only attach to like involuntary muscles, things you don't think about, like your digestive system, squeezing your food through. And then within, just like your skeletal muscle cells, you have type 1 and type 2 fibers, and I think you have type 1A and type 1B muscle fibers, which are like fast twitch and slow twitch muscle fibers. So like there's so many different kinds of cells within even all the categories. which is really interesting, actually, because it's like if you have a lot of type 1 fibers, you're going to be like, I can't remember off the top of my head which one's the fast twitch and which one's the slow twitch. If you have a lot of type 1 fibers, I think you're a sprinter, and type 2 fibers, you're more like a marathon runner, just, by birth, kind of what you're predisposed with. So some people are really good at sprinting. Some people are really good at distance running. So it's really interesting to study all these things. But when we teach kids, like when I was in middle school, we taught, like I took home this styrofoam ball from Joanne Fabrics, and I was supposed to turn it into a cell. And I was so confused. Like, what is a cell? And why am I doing this? And this one kid made one, and it was like Jell-O, and you could eat it. And it was like, cool, but what is this thing again? And like, it kind of leaves you with this sense of like, I don't understand. What is a cell? So I want to finish this cells unit for you guys, helping you to realize this isn't some, faraway concept that doesn't really exist in reality, but that an animal cell there's no such thing as an animal cell, okay? But there are, I'm gonna give you 4 today. There's 4 very real cells, and I picked 4 things that exist in humans, 4 types of cells that exist in humans. And like I said, there's probably 1,000 variations of cells that exist in humans, okay? So we're gonna watch a video about each one and maybe write down a couple notes. Today's gonna be really fast, okay? So let's grab a red colored pencil and color this guy red. This guy is the most abundant cell in your body, and he is filled with a protein whose name you're going to hear over and over again in your life because he's just a pretty well-known protein. I've already said it out loud a couple times in class. Filled with, he's a red blood cell, by the way, red blood cell. It's actually, this is what makes your blood red. And his name is hemoglobin. Hemoglobin, I think. I can't remember off the top of my head. It could be an A, but I think it's hemoglobin. So if you take human blood and you spin it in a centrifuge, let me just show you this too. This is kind of interesting. Spun blood. Let's just type that in. So here's the real deal. If you spin blood in a centrifuge, you actually can get it to separate into the the red blood cells. So they put this thing in a centrifuge, which is like, and it spins it really fast, and it's like 2 vials are balanced, and then they spin it, and it's like, whoa! It's like the gravitron, at the fair, only with blood and going a lot faster. And all the red blood cells are down here, and all the plasma is up here, and there's this thing in the middle, and that's the white blood cells right there. And so they'll do this when they're doing blood tests on you at the doctor's office, and you can see before and after it comes out like this. And so they actually do, this is one of the things they do when they test your blood at the doctor's office, which is pretty cool. So this is afterwards, and this is before, right? Cool. So let's watch a little video about red blood cells. And while they're talking, I'm going to move this speaker. I'm going to crank the speaker. While they're talking, I might pause it a couple times. So they're first going to, this is, I think I said this, the most abundant cell in your body. You have more of this cell than any other cell, and its whole job is to carry oxygen from your lungs to your body tissues, primarily your brain and your muscles. Those are the places where you need oxygen immediately the most. You can actually, here's a terrible story. You can actually cut off, I'm not going to tell you that, it's too personal, but you can actually cut off blood tourniquet. It's a Q, okay. Tourniquet, I hope we don't see anything really bad. You can actually cut off blood to an extremity for hours, and it's no problem. So this looks bad. So here's somebody bleeding out, and they can apply this tourniquet. This is like their leg or something. So you can get a major wound on your arm, let's say. So like, let's say that I accidentally cut off, shink right here with a, I was playing with my lightsaber. Oh man, now I'm bleeding everywhere. Okay, I could take my belt and I could wrap it around and just, and it would close all my blood vessels, and it's called a tourniquet. My body, my muscles can live for about, I don't know, 8 hours without blood and survive. My brain, my heart can't do that. And so one of the primary reasons we breathe every 2 or 3 seconds is because we have to get oxygen to our brain and our heart. Okay, sorry, I'm distracted. Red blood cells, very important. Bring oxygen everywhere all the time. So here we go. Whoa, we're on fast mode. Let's turn that off. Okay, here we go, regular speed. Oh, also probably be good if I turn on the video for you to see it. Okay, here we go. You didn't miss anything yet. Okay, so we're zoomed in on, I don't think we saw the person on this one. Boom. So we're zoomed in, we're actually inside of a bone. We're starting in bone marrow because that's where red blood cells come from. Really cool space age music. So those are, I'm just going to mute this for a second. Those are stem cells. So the stem cells to make blood cells are actually in your bone marrow. You can see it says bone marrow right there. And so bloop, you just saw a red blood cell pop out of that blue cell. That blue cell's a stem cell. It will make more and more red blood cells. And so now the red blood cell makes its way from the bone marrow to the bloodstream. And now we're in the heart. And you can get the sense like, I'm flowing. This thing's beating. It's back and forth. You can see that's a valve. Just went through a valve. Okay. Hey, there's another valve. That's a tricuspid. Woo! All right, going out the aorta. Okay, and now we're in the lungs. And they don't really tell you and show you carbon dioxide versus oxygen, but whatever's coming out is carbon dioxide, and whatever's going in is going to be oxygen. I don't even really see anything going in, but lots of oxygen is going to be going in. And you can see here, carbon dioxide is going to be going in and oxygen is going to be coming out. And so this is called gas exchange. So red blood cells can carry some carbon dioxide and they can release a whole bunch of oxygen. And this said that we're into the tissues. They didn't have an animation, or they just had loud music. And for you, it's probably the normal sound, but and this says the body constantly makes new red blood cells. Oh, I think we missed the part where I was talking, but it said somewhere back here, they only live for about 120 days. And so the body constantly makes them, and they're constantly dying. And they actually turn yellow when they're dead, which is why if your liver doesn't work, your whole body turns yellow. And let's look this up. How many cells are in the human body? Okay, adding up their numbers, scientists came up with, drumroll, 37 trillion cells, according to the random Google answer, right? How many red blood cells are in the human body? Okay, 4 to 5 million red blood cells, that's not an answer. Okay, keep going. Red blood cells, we have to find an answer to this. How many red and white cells in the human body? How many blood cells are in the human body? How many red blood cells in a day? How many red blood cells do we make per second? Well, those are all interesting questions, but approximately 80, here you go, 20, here's an answer, Wikipedia. I don't know if you can see this. Approximately 84% of the cells in the human body are red blood cells. That is crazy, man. So most of your body's cells, not by size, obviously, but they're little cells. They don't even have a nucleus. Their nucleus is actually removed to put in more hemoglobin. But 20 to 30 trillion red cells in your body. In England, they don't even say the word blood. They just call them the red cells. And 84% of your cells are red blood cells by number, not by mass. Okay, pretty interesting though. Okay, so red blood cells, very important part of your body. Go back to the notes. This is the most abundant cell in your body. Now, this one right here. Oh, and I'm supposed to give you the fancy name. I guess I'll call him the regular name here. Well, no, you don't care. Okay, go down here. The fancy word is erythrocyte. Erythrocyte, which I think is probably just like a Greek word for red or something. I don't know why urethro, but I think it probably means red. Okay, and the main purpose, this cell, what does it do? It stores and releases oxygen. It's all about oxygen delivery. That's crazy. The number of cells just for oxygen. Oxygen is by far the limiting factor of your existence. You know, like most people who die probably die because their oxygen delivery system breaks down. Like when you think about like, well, why do people die from COVID, for example? They die from COVID because their lungs are full of fluid and they can't get oxygen in and out fast enough to keep the brain and the heart alive. Or, like, why does a blood clot kill you? Some people get COVID, it's related to blood clots. Well, a blood clot means you cannot circulate blood, which means you cannot get the oxygen in and out and to the body tissues fast enough. Or if you're an old person and you die of natural causes, usually natural causes is going to somehow be related to your heart not working right so that it doesn't beat enough blood so that you don't get oxygen to the places enough. So the limiting factor of why someone stops being alive is usually probably somehow related to delivering enough oxygen to their body to be alive. So oxygen, super important to your existence, okay? Next one is an enterocyte, all right? So this guy is an enterocyte. I'm going to call him a digestive cell. How about that? That's not really a great term, but a digestive cell, okay? What did I call it down here, actually? An absorptive cell. Yeah, that's another name for it, I guess. Okay, I called it an absorptive cell down here. So an enterocyte, nobody really calls it anything other than an enterocyte. I'm trying to give it kind of a more general name as well. So an enterocyte is an absorptive cell of the intestinal lining. Its function is to absorb all the delicious things you eat. Okay, and so I've got him up here. Let's give him a little color. I'm gonna grab a nice greenish yellowish color. Just color him really quick. Give him some nice color. You know, the color of that color you turn right before you throw up. Oh, you're looking a little greenish yellow. Do you need to go vomit? Okay, now the thing I want you to notice about this cell is that he has a really cool haircut, okay? And his haircut right up here is called a, kind of a name that you would be like, if I were to ask you, where's the brush border on this? You'd be like, well, that thing kind of looks like a paintbrush and a border's like an edge. So this is called a brush border, okay? And I don't know who named it that, but that's what they call it. And that's the only part that really sees the outside world, the brush border, okay? On the enterocyte. Now, I've got an animation for you on this one too. So let's go to it. And this is actually made by a company that's trying to sell you drugs for your animal. So once again, I think I'll probably just mute this and hit play. So, all right, we're zoomed in. I love it when they zoom in and show you the thing that you're inside of before you go inside of it, but they didn't do that. So we're just here and we're just like, oh man, when I was a kid, we lived in a house that had shag carpet, okay? So in the 70s, people believed that it was cool to have this special kind of carpet that was called shaggy carpet, and it was just really long carpet. It was so gross, and it was yellow. It was like the color of pea yellow, and it was long and shaggy. This is what this reminds me of. Now you're looking at this and you're like, I don't know what I'm looking at. I look at this and I'm like, oh, this is a really good animation of the small intestine. Okay, so right after your stomach, you have this thing called your small intestine, which is not the part where the poop is. It's the part where the still food is. It's not poop yet, it's still food. And so it comes out of your stomach and it's just a liquid food at this point. Like if you took your entire meal and you blended it really good and then you threw in a bunch of mucus and some acid with it, that is what comes out of your stomach. And it goes into this part and it looks all shaggy because it's just a ton of surface area to absorb every little droplet of the good stuff. Now they're going to cut away here, shink, and you can see what it looks like. Now these are called villi. And villi are actually giants. And then you can see that little box. Did you see that? Go back again, and they cut away, and then they made a little box up here in the corner. And that little box is now a zoom in, and you zoom in, and it's amazing because there's another shag carpet on top of one of the shags of the shag carpet. So it's like, this is like called a fractal, where you go in and it's just another thing of the same thing. Whoa, man, it's like when you're getting your haircut at the doctor's office. No, you don't get your haircut at the doctor's office. What's that place called? As you can tell, I don't have to go there anymore. At the butcher? No, they cut the meat. Who cuts the hair? Barber. You're at the barber shop, and they've got a mirror behind you and in front of you, and it's like doo 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 doo. Or that moment in one of the Star Wars movies where the girl sees the girl and the girl and the girl and the girl. Okay, same kind of thing. So now we've cut away, and you're on top of it, and it's cell all over it, and it has a brush border on top of the other ones. Okay, so point is, so much surface area inside your small intestine, all for absorbing. And each one of these little delicious little squares with the really cool haircut on top is a cell. It's called an enterocyte. And on top of that, you see like this little ocean of fluid. That's actually mucus, and you can see actually there's bacteria in there, but below it is actually supposed to be your bloodstream. Now they're going to show a white blood cell, which they have as green, and he's actually going to reach his arm between two of the cells, and he's going to grab a bacteria and eat it. And that's pretty cool. You actually have a bloodstream underneath your enterocytes, and every piece of food, they're not going to talk about this in the video, but every piece of food that you absorb, so I wish I had my pen right now, I don't have it attached yet, but up here, where I'm circling, every piece of food you absorb has to go through the enterocyte to get to the bloodstream down here. And so the enterocyte's job is to absorb every good thing and to reject every bad thing. And he is like the guy who decides who gets in and who stays out. Okay, and his brush border is a place for a lot of selection to occur. And then inside of him, also a lot of selection occurs. And whatever's great gets through, and whatever's bad stays out. And some things, like poisons, can get through sometimes. And so that's kind of a dangerous thing about, eating the wrong grapes in the forest and stuff. But enterocytes, this is their job. Their job has nothing to do with delivering oxygen. It's a totally different kind of cell. His job is to absorb the right things and let them pass through. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Totally different shape, totally different look, really sweet haircut. Okay, so go back to the notes here. Enterocytes have a nice brush border, and the absorption happens right through here, okay, from whatever you eat. Now, next cell, this is called a myocyte, M-Y-O-C-Y-T-E. Now, you've already learned about these guys. I'm going to color him red as well because it just seems wrong not to. Muscle cells are always drawn as red, okay. So a myocyte is a muscle cell. You've seen a video of this already. I'm going to show you a quick one. It's like 1 minute. I'm going to zoom through this one. Okay. So myocyte is a muscle cell. And the whole job of a myocyte is to contract the length of itself. I'm going to say that to shorten the length of itself. Okay. And also, while we're here, I noticed I forgot to do this. Cells that are designed to carry out a specific function are specialized, okay? Specialized cells, they're the real kind of cells. And the eukaryotic blob that is taught to every kid it doesn't actually exist is the generalized cell. I'm going to put cell below this. And then the generalized cell, I think I spelled that right. The generalized cell is the eukaryotic. It's eukaryotic, but it doesn't really exist. Okay, in case you didn't get myocyte and shorten. All right, so let's go on to my video of a muscle contraction. This one will be quick. I'm going to go double speed because it doesn't need to be that long. So here is a girl sprinting. We're zooming in on her calf muscle. We're looking at her muscles. They're going to show us the structure of her muscles. And this thing right here, wait for it, this thing right here that looks like a hair is actually a nerve. And we're actually going to study that thing next. So just keep an eye on it. So the nerve actually has the ability to send, and oh, this is another interesting thing. So there's lots of organelles that we don't go in depth about. One of the organelles we don't go in depth about is the endoplasmic reticulum. Most of the time, the endoplasmic reticulum, his job is just to modify proteins. But in this particular cell, sometimes even the organelles become very specialized. In this particular cell, the endoplasmic reticulum is this blue thing, and he doesn't actually specialize proteins. He actually sends an electrical signal after it comes from the nerve. So this yellow thing up here is the nerve, and once the nerve sends a signal, the ER, the endoplasmic reticulum, which is blue here, he'll actually help send the signal to the muscle further. And this video will show it. Oh, I didn't hit play, sorry. This video will show that the signal goes from the nerve to the ER, and it actually goes down these things called T-tubules, and then it shortens the length of the muscle cell. This whole thing right here is the muscle cell, and you see it shrinking. Now we could watch this in depth, and remember there's myosin and actin, and so here's a bunch of little myosin ratchets pulling on actin, and we learned about this with ATP, and it's kind of weird looking, and usually students are freaked out by the way that it looks. And there's ATP involved, and there's calcium involved. And if you think this stuff is really interesting, by the way, you should really take anatomy and physiology when you get a little bit older. You can take it. It's a really good class to take in community college, or you can take it in high school. And so anatomy and physiology, like my favorite class. Like it's like biology meets humans. And you just study the biology of humans. Very cool class. So you already learned that one. Now we're going to jump right to nerves. So nerves connect to muscles, but they also connect to other organs as well. And they send electrical signals, okay? So they're in your brain, but they're also in your muscles. And this is kind of cool sounds, actually, that this one makes. So let's back this up really quick. I need to actually slow it down again. Some videos I think are too slow. Some I think are just right. So here is a brain, and we're going to zoom in on the brain, and we're going to see the brain has these things called neurons, okay? And neurons kind of look like stars with really long tentacles, okay? In fact, one of the types of neurons is called an astrocyte, which sounds like a star cell, and it's kind of shaped like a star. And so this particular neuron, I actually don't remember all the different types. There's lots of types of neurons, but I don't know what this one would be depicting. But you can hear, I don't know if you can hear it, but they make cool sounds in this animation. And you can see there's this wave, and it actually is electrical, but it's electrical because it involves salt. Which batteries, I don't know if you know this, but batteries often involve salt as well. And so part of the reason that you need to eat salt in your diet is because of your nervous system. If your salt, oh, here we go. Now you can hear it. If your salt gets out of balance in your body, one of the first dangerous things about that is that your electrical system, your nervous system, will get out of whack. And so you can see that it's actually a wave of salts that's rapidly transferring. And let me show you one more thing. I'll turn the sound back on here. You can see that there's this long tentacle. And so the long tentacle goes from one nerve to the next nerve. And it's like a wire, just like how you have wires in your house and wires in your car. The wires between nerves send the signal from one nerve to the next nerve, and certain nerves can be like 3 feet long. So the nerve that takes a signal from your spine to the tippy toes of your feet, it's a single nerve, and it goes all the way from your spine to your toes. And so even though it's one cell, it can have a really long wire, which is called an axon, that goes from it. So you got cells that carry oxygen, you got cells that absorb things, you got cells that shorten themselves to cause motion, and then you've got cells that send electrical signals. So it's really cool the way your body is designed to use the same little units called cells to do all kinds of different functions. And there is no generalized cell. You're made up of lots of different kinds of cells that do different things. So let's write this down. The neuron is a slightly fancier name for a nerve cell, and the function is to send an electrical signal. Cool. All right, and let's go up here, and this is a nerve cell. Okay. And so those are 4 examples of specialized cells. You've got red blood cells, digestive cells, or enterocytes, myocytes. Yeah, I really screwed that up. I was supposed to say muscle cell there. And you've got nerve cells. Nerve cells are typically drawn as yellow, so I'd grab some yellow here. And, wires, this is kind of interesting. Wires are always wrapped in plastic or rubber because you don't want the electrical the metal to touch other metal, because then your signal gets messed up. And you can see right here, these little bumps right here are actually cells called Schwann cells that are actually wrapped around the wire. They're wrapped around this thing, and this thing is called an axon. You don't have to know this, but I'm just going to label this. This is called an axon. It's like the wire of the nerve. And you actually have other cells that wrap around the axon just to insulate it so its signal doesn't get messed up. And so it's just amazing to see how the cells of the body are little inventions that do a lot of the same thing that human inventions do. And a lot of times they do them better than human inventions. Okay, that's all I got for you. Oh, big question. What are some examples of specialized cells in the human body? So you have 4 examples. You have muscle cells, you have nerve cells, you have digestive cells, enterocytes, which is one particular type of digestive cell, and you have red blood cells. So you can talk about each one of those briefly, or you can just pick one and talk about it in depth. You could go online and you could read 5 pages about enterocytes, and you could be like, holy moly, there's a lot more than what Johnny showed me. I'm just giving you a little taste of each one. Big picture principle that I want you to learn is that there are specialized cells. There are no generalized cells, okay? If you're a bacteria, there's one kind of cell, okay? But once you become a multicellular organism, your cells become specialized to perform various functions. Cool stuff. 32 minutes, man. I just cannot stop talking. I'm sorry, guys. But it's all right. This is how it goes in school. Your teachers preach it at you. All right. Hey, you have a test on Tuesday. So y'all better study, get ready, because Tuesday, show up with your notebook done, show up with your workbook done, because it is time to take your test, turn in your stuff, get the new workbook. It's Judgment Day on Tuesday. Peace out, Girl Scouts.